Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. Office clerk jobs, they sometimes get a bad rap, like they're just about pushing paper. But we wanted to find out, what does it really take to be successful in this kind of role today?
Yeah, it's definitely more than just stapling and filing these days.
Right. So we're digging into this guide to common interview questions for office clerks, trying to see if we can decode what employers are really looking for.
Oh, smart. So, kind of turning the tables, using the interview to understand the job itself.
Exactly. So the first thing that jumps out, the very first question in this guide, is about computers, printers, scanners, all that office equipment.
Makes sense. But does it go beyond just knowing how to turn things on?
Well, that's what we're trying to figure out. Is it basic computer skills or something more?
I mean, I guess basic computer skills are a given at this point. Like, you can't really work in any office without them.
True. Okay, so maybe this question is more about a comfort level with technology in general.
Yeah, that's probably more like it. Because things move fast, right?
Yeah.
New software, new systems, all the time.
Definitely. I mean, think about it. Even just a few years ago, things were so different. You wouldn't have had questions about, like, cloud storage or whatever.
Totally. And this guide actually does mention specific software. Things like Microsoft Office, obviously, Google Workspace, to even stuff like multi-line phone systems.
Huh. See, to me, that's interesting. Phone systems. You're not just answering calls, you're managing the whole system.
It's like they're expecting you to be a mini IT expert on top of everything else.
So tech skills, definitely a must-have. But then the guide dives into a bunch of questions about accuracy, data entry, record keeping, meeting minutes.
Yeah, I see where they're going with that. One tiny error in those areas and things can go very wrong.
Right. Like you don't want to mess up someone's salary in the payroll system or send the wrong invoice to a client.
Exactly. There's a real emphasis on attention to detail, making sure you get things right the first time.
Which, to be honest, is making me double check everything I'm doing right now.
Probably a good habit for all of us, right? And they even ask about confidential information. Like, how would you handle that?
So it's not just about being accurate, but also trustworthy. Like you're being given access to sensitive stuff.
And there are probably procedures to follow, systems in place, all that.
You really have to be on top of it. Okay, so we've got tech skills, accuracy. What else?
Well, the guide goes on to list a ton of different tasks an office clerk might handle. It's kind of overwhelming, to be honest.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Managing office supplies, for
Yeah.
one, handling mail, scheduling appointments, even training new employees.
Whoa, training. I wouldn't have expected that.
Right. It's like suddenly you're not just an office clerk, you're kind of a jack of all trades.
Supporting the whole office, making
Mhm.
sure things run smoothly.
Yeah, it's a much bigger role than it used to be. And
Yeah.
this is where it gets really interesting. They have this whole thing about managing office supplies.
Right, I saw that.
And they talk about using spreadsheets to keep track of inventory, which, okay, makes sense. But then they also say you got to do regular physical checks too.
So it's not enough to just have the numbers in a spreadsheet. You got to actually go and see what's there.
Makes you think, huh? Like, technology can only take you so far.
You still need that human touch. And what happens when the spreadsheet says you have enough toner, but you actually don't?
Exactly. Got to be able to solve problems on the fly. Think ahead.
So it's tech skills, accuracy, A&D problem solving. This is getting complex.
Oh, yeah, we're just getting started. There's a whole other side to this.
I'm starting to see a pattern here. It's like you got to be organized, tech savvy, a problem solver. What else am I missing?
Well, the guide kind of dives into this whole other area. You know those soft skills everyone talks about?
Oh, yeah, right. Like how you interact with people.
Exactly. And honestly, in an office environment, that stuff can be just as important as any technical skill.
Well, the guy definitely asks about it. Like, how would you handle a difficult person? How do you stay calm under pressure? All that.
Because let's be real, offices can be stressful. You're dealing with different personalities all the time.
Yeah, you've got coworkers, bosses, clients, maybe even vendors calling.
And you got to be able to navigate all that, keep things professional, even when maybe you want to scream.
It's true. Actually, the guide gives this example about a customer who's like totally freaking out.
Oh, I hate when that happens.
Right. But the answer they suggest is all about empathy, like putting yourself in the other person's shoes, trying to understand where they're coming from.
Which, honestly, sometimes that's all it takes, just someone to actually listen.
You know what? That reminds me of this one time. I was working as a receptionist, and this guy comes in totally flustered.
Uh-oh. What happened?
He couldn't figure out the online appointment system. And he was already late, so of course he's super stressed.
I can picture it now.
And I could tell he was about to, like, explode. But I just took a deep breath,
Yeah.
tried to stay calm, and I was like, okay, let's figure this out together.
Good for you. It's hard not to get flustered yourself in those situations.
Right. But I just walked him through it step by step, and eventually we got it sorted out.
See, you probably turned his whole day around. It's amazing how much those little interactions can matter.
Totally. Okay, so we've got tech skills, accuracy, people skills, anything else?
Well, the guide keeps going, and they start talking about adaptability.
Adaptability, like being able to roll with the punches.
Exactly, because in an office, things change all the time. New procedures, new software, new
Oh,
priorities.
yeah, for sure. Like, remember when everyone was freaking out about switching to electronic filing systems?
That was rough. I still miss paper sometimes, to be honest.
But you got to adapt, right?
That's the key. This guide has a whole section on it.
So they're looking for people who can learn new things quickly, handle unexpected tasks, basically be flexible.
And not just be flexible, but be okay with it. Like, not get flustered when things change at the last minute.
So it's not just about having the skills, it's also about your attitude, your willingness to learn and grow.
Exactly. They even talk about handling tasks outside of your job description, like going above and beyond.
Okay, so let's recap. We've got the tech skills, the accuracy, the people skills, the adaptability.
And that's all from the employer's side. What about you?
What do you mean?
Well, the guide focuses on what they're looking for. But what about what you should look for in an office clerk job?
Ooh, good point. Like, what questions should we be asking in an interview?
Exactly. It's a two-way street, right?
We were talking about what we'd want to know going into an office clerk interview. Like, what questions could help us figure out if this is actually a good fit?
Right, because the job description only tells you so much. You want to get a feel for the place, the vibe.
Exactly. So you're in the interview, they've asked about your skills, all that. What's a good question to ask them to kind of dig deeper?
You could ask about their teamwork style. Like, how would you describe the way people work together here?
Okay, so you get a sense of how collaborative it is, right?
Yeah.
If they're all about solo work, maybe that's a red flag.
Or if they're like super competitive and everyone's trying to climb over each other,
Hmm,
not always a healthy environment.
totally. What about growth opportunities? Like, is there room to learn new things, maybe even move up in the company?
Oh, that's a good one. You could ask about professional development programs, training, stuff like that, or even what are some typical career paths for people in this role?
Smart. Because if they don't have a good answer, maybe that means they just see you stuck in this one spot forever.
Yeah, not a lot of room for growth. And speaking of growth, you might want to ask about work-life balance. I know it can be a touchy subject.
It is. But it's important. Like, how do they actually support their employees?
You could say something like, what does a typical work day look like here? Or, can you talk about the company's approach to work-life balance?
Okay, those are good. And you know what else? It's totally fair to ask about diversity and inclusion.
For sure, that tells you a lot about a company's values.
So what would you ask specifically?
You could be direct, like, what are some things you do here to promote diversity and inclusion? Or are there any employee resource groups focused on this?
Because you don't want to end up somewhere that just says they care about that stuff but doesn't actually do anything.
Right. Actions speak louder than words, always.
This has been eye-opening, honestly. I never realized how much there is to consider with these kinds of jobs.
It's true. Office clerk work, it's not just about filing anymore. It's about tech skills, people skills, problem solving, and finding a company that actually values you.
Well said. So to everyone listening, remember, do your homework, ask the right questions, and don't settle for anything less than a workplace that makes you feel good about showing up every day.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive into the world of office clerks. We'll catch you on the next one.